Let's go!
Fish Stripes Live, presented by La Pop, once again with myself, Eli Sussman, hosting this show. That's how you know, we're in a pretty dire situation in terms of panelists, but we do have Noah Berger here as usual, and we have a special guest. I think he was with us on Jeopardy during the offseason, but this is his first series preview show. Longtime Fish Stripes supporter. We appreciate his insight on the Marlins. Hans Herrera from Norway. How's it going, Hans?
Good. Tomorrow, like I said, we have National Day here, so preparing everything to have a nice festivities tomorrow. Yeah.
And here, no special festivities around the Marlins for the moment. We'll get into it.
No.
Some of the concerns that the teams are going through, because this is the first time that we're talking to you, and probably the first time that a lot of our listeners are hearing from you. Just give us your general thoughts on what your expectations were for this Marlins season a couple months ago when it got started, and like how's it comparing to those expectations so far?
Well, you guys have talked a lot about high expectations and on the Saturn rotation. We obviously expected some regression from Sandy. I mean, there's no more room to improve the season that he had last year. And then some improvements like developments from Luzardo, which has lived to expectations, but Eddie and maybe Carrot at the beginning of the season. Things have not going that well, but I think it's something that they need to figure out. Every baseball player goes through these rough patches. So I think we just need to give them some time. And they will be just fine. At the beginning of the season, I didn't really love the setup of the lineup, and it's not very much different from last year. I mean, Arias have been like immense in this lineup, but still there is a lot of trouble scoring runs, and you guys talk about a lot about run differential. I don't love that stat, but still you can see some trends when you look at those numbers. So still, I think the team is like living on the edge. At any moment, at any point, can just lose 10 straight games, and then we'll just be like, we saw this coming. But hopefully not. So we'll see. We'll discuss that later.
Yeah, well, let's go quickly back. I want to remind people, because we have a small panel today, your comments are highly encouraged. Any takes that you have about the team's performance, the injury situations, especially on YouTube and Twitch, we can pull those up directly. If you're watching on Twitter, can't see those comments, so hop over to the YouTube and Twitch if you want to comment, and we can share those and answer those questions on the stream to get us through this lead up to the National Series. Before we get into that and the injuries, looking back at this past series against the Reds, a series that there was an immense amount of confidence from Marlins fans from what I saw in terms of going into this series and how the Marlins would fare, seeing the Reds as the start of this easy patch on the schedule. When you just looked at the quality of competition during the stretch. And the Reds, mainly Jake Fraley. This is the new format that we're doing, looking back at the previous series. Do you approve, Noah, compared to what I've shown before with the line scores only, where look, it shows little faces and individual stats next to the line
I
score?
like it. It looks cool.
Yeah.
It gives more information at a glance.
Right. Yeah. Because I find myself, it's sometimes hard to remember what happened in a particular game. And so when I flash up to this, I can actually get the story straight.
And that's why we write recaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is what I actually use to watch games and everything, because 90% of the games happen midnight or 1 a.m. here in Norway. So I wake up and then that's what I do.
Then I would like to personally apologize for my recaps always coming out hours after the game ends.
Now enough time for me to wake up and get myself ready to read. So it's all right.
As Fanston31 mentions here, Jake Fraley kind of took over this one in that middle game on Saturday. Was their first one-run loss of the entire season. As Hans mentioned, with the run differential, the reason why it's so out of step with their record is because they had been undefeated in one-run games until Saturday, finally, when they fell just a little bit short. And then on Sunday, that was a very important win with Braxton Garrett being pretty terrific, at least through the first 5 innings, and getting just enough offense late in that one. Brian De La Cruz, big RBIs, I was very pleased about. Going back to Friday, Hans, I'm sure I don't think you watched it live, but were you able to get any glimpse of the debut of Yuri Perez? And what do you think?
I actually did watch 3 innings live, to be honest. The fourth, the second, third, and fourth, actually. So he left the game. Look, I mean, it's obvious that he belongs to MLB, to the major league level. His makeup, the serenity he had, the quality of pitches, he didn't seem that nervous. I didn't see him like losing his mind at any point. He was, although excited, I think he controlled most of the game. And also, I mean, what else can you get for 80 pitches, 80 something? 4 innings and 2/3 were more than enough. I think there is no doubt that he doesn't need to go down again. So, yeah, very encouraging.
I just love that he made his debut in the teal. Just a perfect look. I was able to watch a couple innings to start it before the Sabbath started. I wasn't able to get any of Saturday's game, and I watched Sunday's game from the hospital. Long story. But yeah, that was a rough series. It started out great with Yuri, and then of course, like the only runs he allows ends up being the runs that matter. And I forget what even the final score of that game was.
They won 6-4, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then again with the 1-run loss now, it was bound to happen at some point. It weren't going to be perfect. Rather get that out of the way sooner. And the big win on Mother's Day was great. It did great for my well-being. Being able to see Brian De La Cruz go 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and it was with 2 doubles and an RBI. So yeah, it was encouraging stuff. And of course, now with the injuries, you're super doubly, triply concerned because now Sanchez has gone down, now Jazz has gone down, and you're just like, oh no. I've seen this movie before, and I don't like the way it ends.
Yeah, I mean, how much it is beginning to resemble last year in that respect. Where what was different last year is they were actually, the offense was pretty decent early on last year, and yet they were struggling in those close games. And now it's kind of opposite, where they're dead last in runs scored per game, but doing so well in those late and close situations. It was just frustrating Friday into Saturday because Friday was the bullpen that let down Yuri. They had a lead. They had a 4-2 lead. And first it was Tanner Scott allowing a couple unnecessary base runners. And then it was Huáscar Brazoban, who's been amazing for the last month. He was the one that allowed the hit that tied it up. And then it was Dylan Floro that had, I guess you could say, his very worst outing of the year. He was hit really hard in that inning that he allowed 3 runs in the top of the 9th. to fall behind, and they overcorrected on Saturday. On Saturday, it was Sandy, who was a little bit uneven, but he had the lead heading into the 8th inning, and that's a time of the game where you're deep into 3 times through the order. That's the time where you almost always go to your bullpen, even if you feel really confident in him. But this time, Skip sticking with Sandy there, and he like lets that lead slip away in the 8th, and they lose. They almost come back in the bottom of the 9th. That would have been a cool moment with Yuli on Cuban Heritage Day. Oh, he was at the plate with an opportunity to win it, and but he struck out in that opportunity. So yeah, so they lose the series, but they still, due to the surprising struggles of the Mets, for one, they're tied for second place entering this particular series. It's a very tightly bunched
Look at
group
all those
behind the
run
Braves.
differentials. Jeez.
Yes, the Braves, the one team in this division that is basically as advertised, and both the Phillies and more so the Mets really being inconsistent and frustrating. And then the Nationals being a team that the fact that they're so close to everybody else is, we're going to get into the Nationals in a little bit, how they've been like surprisingly decent, even they're kind of in the depths of their rebuild. This is the one year, this year and last year were supposed to be the years where they really are not supposed to care about competing. And they are, based on the depth that they have, and a kind of a well-rounded team, even if it's not a sexy team, they're kind of stumbling into decent wins. So I'm not sure if we're going to have
dangerous, by the way. That's dangerous. If you're stumbling into wins too early, you can think you're finished with your rebuild and start to go all in and not have the pieces necessary and flop even harder. Right. So if I'm a Nats fan, I'm worried.
I got 2 comments. Before I forget, I think the Sandy situation on Saturday is something that we kind of need to be aware of. I mean, remember last year that game with Sandy pointing at Mattingly when he had the confidence to let it finish the game, right? So it was like a break point on the whole year for Sandy. So I think Skip is trying to do the same with Sandy, giving him confidence to finish the game. But last 2 or 3 outings, he wants to go all the way, and it hasn't worked out. Like this last time, I think Skip has to sit down with both Mel and Sandy and try to figure out what are we going to do from now on, because wins are wins. And even though he is the best pitcher we have or the team has, sometimes you got to use your bullpen in these kind of situations. And I think before allowing the 3 runs on the 8th inning, he should have gone out and bring in someone from the bullpen. So that's something Skip needs to evaluate. I understand what he's doing, but it's not working. So yeah. And the other thing is the Nats, I don't think they're gonna jump in faster than they should, precipitate the winnings. I think they will try to build a solid team, probably not this year, maybe starting next year. They have kind of a solid rotation right now with Gore and Gray at the front of the rotation. And if you keep the development, maybe next year they have a really a fair shot to compete. I don't think they will do anything this year. I think they will try to sell again on the deadline and get more, stockpiling the farm system. And so I don't think they're gonna jump all in this year if wins keep coming in. That's my point of view, I think.
Yeah. To touch on what you mentioned with Sandy quickly, this has come up before, is as much as they don't want to put the pressure on him to do what he had to do last year and finish games because they have a better bullpen behind him, the issue is almost everybody else in this rotation is relying on the bullpen because they don't go deep into the games. As a whole, their bullpen is way up there in terms of one of the most used bullpens, which indirectly leads to things like AJ Puck all of a sudden having arm fatigue and this injured situation where he's not even available in the first place. Oh, an unrelated note, Noah telling me that Kumar Rocker blew out his elbow. Yikes. He's a Rangers prospect.
That's what
I was
guess that's
wondering why he had that face, the grimace.
I guess that's why the Mets didn't end up signing him.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that's another
Hmm.
story. It is such a fascinating situation with him because you feel like they should be able to win games without relying on him to be who he was last year. Because as you touched on before, it's just not reasonable to expect him to have the year he had last year. It was the best pitching year in Marlins history. There's a reason why pitchers don't repeat that, because everything has to go the right way for you as a pitcher to be that consistently great. And at the same time, there's just a lot of pressure on the other guys in this rotation to work deep in the game so that these decisions are easier. These decisions are a lot easier, for one, if the team scores for you and you have a lead more often, but just as much when those other pitchers in the rotation are working at least into the sixth inning on a consistent basis, so that you feel like you have enough arms available that you can go to when Sandy is tiring. Yeah, and unless those other guys in the rotation are efficient with their pitches and just simply better, so that they're like entering those middle innings still on the mound and in the lead. It's just hard to put these pieces together and have a consistent winning team unless other guys on this team step up.
It's kind of getting annoying how, like, when one guy that we've been waiting for comes back, someone else goes down. Like Sanchez, he gets hot. Okay, he goes down. Then Jazz is getting hot. Okay, he goes down. Cooper's back. Okay. JT Chacon's back. Oh God, there goes AJ Puck.
Yeah.
It's just like the roster turnover because of injuries is getting quite exhausting at this point, and there's not really much you can do about it. It speaks a lot to the team's depth or lack thereof, depending on how you look at it. This is a huge opportunity for Xavier Edwards. But yeah.
Do you think Edwards is going to be called again?
He's there. He got called up today.
Okay.
Yeah, Jazz went to the IL.
Yeah, before getting to that, go ahead.
No, I was saying that I'm going to put my coin on Gerard, but go ahead.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet on Gerard. We'll see.
Yeah.
They're probably, if they miss yet another corner outfielder, or if, not quite yet for him. I want to get into the non-Jazz injuries quickly, where they just got Shagwa back. Shagwa. Got him back from the IL. That is a big boost for them because of how well he was pitching before his injury, and he looks very good during his rehab assignment as well. That's something I pay attention to. He looked fully healthy, and he's going to be one of the more important guys, part of their pen moving forward. They have more reinforcements coming. Nick Enright, who's been pitching in minor league games for a couple weeks now, he's looking pretty sharp as well. He's eligible to come back in about a week and a half. As soon as he's eligible, he's going to be back and on the roster again. Obviously, El Garcia, still a little while away, beginning baseball activity soon. It's not as if he's going to be a huge help to the team when he comes back, if we're being honest about it. We'll take it one step at a time with him, though. So still a while away. And with Puck, the good sign with him is that already playing catch. So if they shut him down from throwing for just a few days, he last pitched last Wednesday. So that is confident. That is reassuring that this isn't going to be a super long absence for him if he's already feeling good enough to throw again. That's something where maybe he'll be back by the very end of the month himself. With Trevor Rogers, he's still building up. That's going to take a while just to get him ready to be a starter again. So that's next month. Jesus Sanchez still rest and rehab. That's something where we reevaluate in June. And then, of course, Sixto. Sixto always finds his way on these injury updates, even if it's always something very similar. Playing catch at 75 feet. We'll revisit later in the year. So going back here, what Navi says, I encourage people to put in their fan questions here. The IL the expected recovery from his dead arm period. In this case, I think the injury update that we got is even more specific than what the history shows. There's this tool we use from a baseball perspective that actually shows exactly what how other players with the same injury have taken to return.
Dead arm is a very broad term, though.
Right. So in this case, I don't know if that'd be super helpful. And because we already have this evidence that he's throwing again, and we know that he's a reliever, we can kind of like put, based on experience, we could say that Puck is that this is a matter of weeks. This is not a super long-term thing with him by all indications. As long as there's no setback, he should be back and up and going in a couple weeks. In terms of who benefits, who has to step up in the absence of Sanchez and now Jazz. Both Burdick and Hampson. I mean, I've been waiting for Hampson to turn back into a pumpkin. I just didn't feel like he was going to be able to hit at a high level for an extended period of time. And I thought they would eventually have to face a tough decision about maybe sending him down. But for the time being, these injuries just ensure that both of those guys are going to stick on the active roster for the near-term future. And then also from Navi about
I want to answer that question. Before every series, home or road, the Marlins communications team gathers the reporters around and gives us that list of injury updates. They'll go through pretty much everything, giving us just general updates, all those specific things, and we tweet out what is pretty much important or what's changed. We can ask for specific updates on guys if they don't include them. So I've asked if need be, I can go and ask about Castano tomorrow and see what they say. But yeah, that's pretty much when those injury updates are. The stuff you get from Skip is when you're asking in the media scrums about the concern level and like the specific injuries and stuff. And the IL decisions are usually have to go through an official thing. So it's different every time. But usually beginning of the series for the general injury updates, and IL is just announced when it needs to be announced.
Yeah, I guess it's a whole process and paperwork, and so you need to be like kind of careful. Yeah, I guess I don't know.
I think from here we should go into Jazz now. The fact that this is a turf toe injury, I think I have a video queued up just so everybody's on the same page about exactly how this happens for anybody that missed it on Saturday. Oh, we do have a press box report, just as I was going to go into that. So actually, we'll bring these guys in just in time. I want to make sure that everybody on Twitter knows that we're going to be joined by Isaac and Daniel, tandem from the ballpark, for this Marlins press box report. There we go.
Take it off like this. Hold on. Wait.
Is anyone talking?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
How's it going? So you can see it's Isaac and I here. We're at the ballpark. What do you guys say?
Matching.
It looks all right, I suppose.
I'm just trying to enjoy my ice cream. Go ahead.
I mean, we got the injury report. Stuff with Jazz gonna look good. Up in Charlotte, Jesus Sanchez is here at the ballpark. Everything. Yeah, he's doing BP, so he should be closer.
4 weeks.
Yeah, closer for a couple weeks, maybe less than a month for Jesus Sanchez compared to Jazz, who 4 or 6 weeks. But knowing the Marlins, that could be 8 weeks, could be 10 weeks. You never know, especially how Jazz has been injury-wise throughout his career. But besides that, everything looks good. Skip was talking about, that timetable. Talking about Yuri. Yuri is on Thursday. He mentioned that. It was TBA, but confirmation that we are going to see Yuri again. He likes what he's doing. He says Yuri has a lot of stuff to become Sandy. He says not a lot of guys are able to do that. He has high praise for Yuri. He believes that he can get up to Sandy's level, if not surpass him in some way. But those are the main takeaways from today at the ballpark. Nationals coming in. I believe they're an underrated team, despite what their record and maybe the talent that they have. I think it's pretty good, even compared to the Marlins. You have guys like Abrams, Meneses, Mackenzie Gore, really underrated team. And do not be surprised if they take 2 out of 3. Do not be surprised if the Nationals beat them at all. Really underrated team. A lot of people had them kind of like the Oakland A's, but they're less than 10 games under 500. But that should tell you something.
Yeah. With CJ Abrams, I always cringe when I watch him defensively. He kind of alternates between making great plays and making like facepalm plays out there. But he's the bottom line is he's been hitting all of a sudden. Like, all of a sudden he's like, they still have him batting ninth, but all of a sudden he's like one of the more confident hitters out there. You've been high on Josiah Gray for quite
That's
a
my
while,
guy.
and he's finally putting it all together. He was a really well-regarded prospect when he was traded over to the Nats almost 2 years ago, and he's putting it all together, right? What's the difference for him? Why all of a sudden is he a sub-3 ERA guy and maybe the ace of this team?
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention, Stone Garrett playing eighth and starting. Man, he's had a pretty nice start, I would say, to his career so far this season. OPS a little under 7, but a guy with his age and his experience, I think that's pretty good there. But yeah, speaking of Josiah Gray, I can't wait to see him. One of my favorite pitchers. Him against Luzardo is going to be fun. I would expect a lot of strikeouts from Josiah against this Marlins lineup. It is not really that good, looking at it, especially with all these injuries out. You look at that bottom half, you look at Wendell Hampson lead off. Do not be surprised if Josiah Gray gets double-digit strikeouts tonight.
You mentioned with Stone Garrett, this is his first game against his former team. He was drafted by the Marlins in 2014 and had somewhat of an adventurous time. Him and Josh Naylor getting into an interesting incident when they were in, I think it was low A. I don't know if people know about that.
Yeah.
But now, and they cut him during the lost COVID season. He debuted with the D-backs last year, and now he's with the Nationals this year.
Doing all right.
Yeah, he's a platoon guy. He's somebody. He starts against lefties like Luzardo. That's what he's here to do. And but aside from that, I think everybody's aware that Jazz isn't even with the team at the moment.
He's in Charlotte.
Flew up to get examined by that foot specialist who gave them that diagnosis.
Skip also mentioned that Xavier Edwards is the only bat that they're going to have on the bench that's a lefty. They mentioned that he is a guy that they also look like that could play center field there. They're going to have him play in the outfield as well, especially with all those guys injured. But yeah, that was the main takeaway, talking about X. So it looks like he's here to stay, or up until at least Jazz is ready to come back. But yeah, especially could have that lefty, since they have no lefties in this lineup. But
the only switch hitter on the 40-man.
Yeah, that's a good thing for them. But yeah, with Xavier Edwards, you want to play a little more positional. So you don't be surprised if you see him starting a game or two in center.
Who? X. Tell Billy Cruz no center for him. Tell them.
Oh, yeah, this is a good time.
And Della mentioned on the corners. Della on the corners.
Let me bring this up because Lewis doesn't feel like I do enough to promote his tweets. He does good tweets.
Might be a reason for that, Lewis.
He listed there really are 5 potential center field alternatives on the roster if you go through it. Hampson's the one that has by far the most major league experience. Not surprising he's starting tonight. Yeah, Dela Cruz, each of the last few years he's had some. Birdie is someone who played quite a bit of center field when he was originally joining the Marlins, and then he's barely played it at all the last few years. And then Edwards hasn't played it in the majors yet, but then Burdick with him at center field all that time, most of that time came last year when he was up at the end of the year. So from your understanding, it's not going to be one steady center fielder for this team in the meantime, right? It's going to be a bit of mixing and matching.
Yeah, I would say a mix between Hampson, X, and Payne Burdick. I would say are the main center fielders. I think you mentioned De La is going to be a corner guy, and then John Birdie again is going to be all over the field. So very limited appearances in the outfield probably for him.
And I'll answer this one. Peter Pratt with his imagination, the fabulous Locked On Marlins podcast. I encourage people to listen, although he sometimes gets overexcited and overly bold. Victor Mesa Jr., the reigning Southern League Player of the Week, 21 years old. This has been a nice step forward for his career to this point this season. He's not anywhere close to being big league ready. Even at Double-A, he's striking out at a very high rate. I think there's overall questions about exactly whether he'll be able to hit high-level pitching until he gets more reps against them. So this being just his first taste at Double-A, I don't even think you begin to consider a call-up for him until the second half of the season. That's even if everything goes well. So that's my own take on Victor Jr. though.
Anything else you guys want to know? Maybe injury wise, players. I sent the predictions to Eli, so you'll get that.
Yeah,
very good predictions at the end of the stream there. Not really that confident in the Marlins. We think the Nationals are a sneaky team that could take 2 out of 3, and it wouldn't shock you at all.
Yeah, because they look pretty good against the Mets in this past series. They, by almost every like objective measure, they are as good, if not slightly better, than the Marlins. Except they're just not as effective and dominant in close games. So it should be a good series. But we'll cut you off right there. Right at the middle of the show, Daniel Rodriguez, Isaac Azut. I think Daniel's going to do our recap article reluctantly.
I'll do it. I got it ready.
As long as somebody does it, yeah. I don't care too much who does it one way or the other, but very interesting series for both these teams. And
love you guys.
Yeah. So follow him on Twitter, DRoddy, YYYYY, and Isaac Azut. So they'll have updates throughout the game and coverage afterwards. So we're going to go to a break, and then on the other side, talk a little bit more about Jazz and then a little bit more about the Nationals and give all of our predictions for this 3-game set, the first matchup of the year between these two teams. So first, a message from our partners at La Pop. Not prediction time. Fish Stripes Live presented by La Pop with me, Eli Sussman, hosting a second straight show. Our appreciation to La Pop. They just re-upped with us for yet another month covering us. You can find more information about them at lapop.com/services to make your appointment at their location in Doral. I'm extremely grateful for their support of our show that we do here at least twice a week, every single week throughout the season, previewing every Marlins series, as well as some additional special streams such as Marlins Jeopardy that Noah hosts, and for other special events throughout this upcoming season. So we do a whole lot of stuff here, and we bring in special guests like Hans wherever they are on the globe, as long as they like Marlins and they're dedicated to breaking them down. Then it's a big asset to our audience. So we're halfway through here. And I do think we need to talk a little bit more about Jazz. Daniel did a good job touching on the situation where they do have a lot of guys that could potentially play the position. It seems that due to the other injuries with both Avi out and Sanchez out, they also have voids in the corner spots. And so that sets up a situation where it's pretty easy to let unleash DLC, but mostly in the corner spots. And I think even with Burdick, they'll probably play more so in right field than he does in center. But those guys are options when needed. You have Edwards, who we haven't seen in center field yet. He's just learning center field the same way that Jazz is this year, too. I think people should keep that in mind, that he was a career infielder coming up through the minors. And so that's still pretty new for him. Even though you're not making the decisions, Hans, how do you think they should handle center field? Is there an internal solution that you really like at the moment? Or are we in this situation where if the team is hovering around 500 and Jazz has it could be a while that he's out, how are you tempted to maybe do something bold, like try to get somebody else from outside the organization and strike a deal?
Well, several points. First of all, I think this is also an opportunity for Soler getting some reps on left field or right field. I mean, he shouldn't play that much, but whenever DLC plays center field, he can just jump into left field or right field. So I don't think there is like the ideal candidate to play the position while Jazz is out, but a little bit of mix and match should at least cover some weeks. So I do like the idea of a mix between Burdick, Hampson, and DLC for the time being. I would love to see, for example, Jake Mangum, but I don't think it's going to happen, even though he's having somehow a solid season in AAA in Jacksonville. But then will be some 40-man handling that shouldn't be benefit for the team. That shouldn't be beneficial for the team. So that would be the case if, for example, God forbid, Jazz is out of the whole season. So then you realize, well, you need an extra man. So I don't think there is a necessity for bringing someone outside the organization, like we did last year with Hamilton. And this is an opportunity for example, Peyton Burdick to demonstrate that he is at the MLB level. I mean, right now he has been a bit inconsistent, but maybe giving him more time to play out either center field or the corners, he might find somehow more comfort playing the position. So yeah, I don't like the idea of Xavier Edwards on center field. I think that's kind of improvisation. If we have three players that can handle the position on a pinch, you can kind of, yeah, like I said, play one of them more regularly. I would say it's Hampson, but then a little bit of Burdick and DLC would do it. So yeah.
With just going back to Soler, I highly doubt he will get any time in the field, specifically
At
at
all?
home. Specifically at home, with the concerns over his back, and he has voiced his concerns very often and very loudly about how the turf field at Lone Depot Park has
Mm.
contributed to his back issues. So I highly doubt he will be playing any, if at all, in
Mhm.
field at Lone Depot Park. Maybe on the road where it's natural grass or a different type of turf. Fill in time in the corner outfield spots. If my dog would shut up, maybe we could get moving it. But I don't see him getting much time in the outfield. And again, with the concerns for his back, it's better for him to just be DH. With Brian De La Cruz, I think he should stick in the corners. It's just too much risk for him in center field, and with the plays he tries to make that he can't make. And Xavier Edwards, I would kind of like to see him in center field once or twice, but again, not something I want to see consistently unless he shows that he's really good at center field. So it's pretty much between Peyton Burdick, Garrett Hampson, and John Birdie for center field.
Yeah, I'm putting up this comment about Cooper going back to the outfield for the first time in 2 years.
Please don't.
He's always been a
Do you
big,
want him healthy or not?
Yeah, he's always been a big-bodied guy, and I think he's not very mobile or coordinated out there. And for somebody that's just coming back from a bit of an absence on his own, it was not injury related; it was that ear infection. But nonetheless, have you ever seen Yuli catching fly balls? That has reportedly been something that has happened.
I've never seen him leave the infield.
Okay,
me neither, at all. But hey, he would do better than Cooper. That's
maybe
for sure.
Shagging fly balls during BP, but I don't. Or like fielding pop ups from first base. I've never seen him field any other position. Try and field any other position other than an infield position.
I mean, I don't want to go as extreme as
Navi, get out.
as Peter, but what about if we bring someone like Victor Meza for late in replacement? Defensively, he is.
Right. That's just not. There needs to be a balance between the long-term well-being of those prospects and what the team needs right now. That's why I was even uncomfortable about calling up Yuri exactly when they did. I thought that they skipped that step in his development of just making sure everything looked okay in AAA. And we'll see how that ages. But that was a really exceptional player in Yuri that they were willing to take that step. With Victor Mesa, although he's an exciting prospect, and we're putting out an updated Fish Stripes top 30 prospect list soon. We're really high on him, but he's just not the same caliber of player.
No. But I mean Victor, not Victor Jr. The old Victor.
Well, he just got back from his own very hazy injury IL stint. We don't know exactly why he was away from the team. And with him, you're right that defensively, he's about as good as there is defensively in center field. He's about as bad as there is as a hitter, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With him, I just don't think there's.
He's gonna be not good with the stick, but it's the same case that we brought Hamilton last year, and probably for a pinch or defensive replacement, he can do the job. I'm sure about that. And if you put it on waivers, nobody's gonna claim it. So right, it's not a crazy idea. It's not a good idea either, but it's not crazy. So yeah.
They're in this curious situation where they have called up some young players. And when it comes to Burdick, when he was originally called up, and when Edwards is up a few weeks ago, that's been a nice change from previous years where they would call up those journeymen that could be very easily DFA'd afterwards. But now they're in the situation where they call these players up and they get irregular playing time, and they're not even being put in this best opportunity to reach their potential because their playing time is being limited and inconsistent, and they're not even playing complete games all that often. And so they're not really even being put in comfortable situations because of the teams. It's fascinating that they're going to these guys that could have real futures with the team, but also using them in ways that I don't think gets the best out of them. Over Victor, I think Mangum is deservedly the better guy to go to if they want to go in that direction, where he has shown enough, at least as a contact hitter. And I think defensively, he has impressed me as well. He might not be quite at the same level, but it's pretty close. He is a good defensive center fielder as well, maybe a little bit less arm strength, but being able to do all the other aspects of it. So if it is somebody that deserves to get that opportunity, I would certainly go with Mangum over Victor when it comes to that. Yeah, there's a lot of the other complication is that they have these injuries. The thing is that I guess the positive is that none of these are really severe injuries. So these aren't players that you're hiding on the 60-day IL to create those extra roster spots. Even with Avi, he's been out a few weeks, but now it seems like he might be returning in a few weeks, barring setbacks. With Sanchez as well. With Jazz, as you meant, it's kind of a borderline situation where there's an opportunity for him to get back in less than 60 days. So they're not going to rush into anything. I suppose Johnny Cueto is probably the one on here that they can most easily open a spot. Were you like up to speed on what happened with him, where he was working back from that biceps issue and then he hurt his ankle in a rehab start? Unbelievable. He had a totally separate injury now that he's coming back from, in addition to the original injury with him.
Yeah, I just saw a video of him working on the ankle. It looks pretty swollen. So, yeah. But it's the way he performed at the beginning of the season. There's no rush. So we'll see. But yeah, that's what I meant with Victor. Unless Jazz is out of the season, God forbid, and then you can bring a guy like Mangum, because you know he's gonna stay the whole season and get that roster spot. But if Jazz comes back, then you have to expose him to waivers, and you don't want that because he's having actually a good season. So working with Victor maybe can work, but it's a complicated situation right now, especially offensively. And at the beginning, I said probably Gerard Encarnacion. He's having a good season except for the strikeouts.
Yep.
He is striking out almost half of the at-bats, which is terrible. But he is batting for power, batting for average. He has a good OBP. We know he has a great arm. So yeah, he is already in the 40-man roster. It's another possibility. So I'm just throwing that out there.
With him, I just don't trust him. I feel like he is the perfect quad A player, as they call it, where he's great at AAA. He's great in the winter league, playing winter ball as well. It's just when he faces the highest level of pitching, he just doesn't have the bat speed to catch up with fastballs. The strikeouts are going to be as you said, they're alarming right now, and they're not going to get any better when he faces the highest level of competition, just because it takes him too long to get through the zone. And defensively, there were a couple nice moments last year of him in the big leagues. Overall, he's a minus defender out there, where his throws are inaccurate at times, and he's just a really unpolished fielder, even though he has such a strong arm. The other aspects of it have been kind of disappointing with him. I thought they might call him up when Cooper got hurt, because they were going for a little bit of time. They only, like, Yuli was the everyday first baseman for that week and a half. That made me a little bit nervous, and I thought maybe they would bring up Encarnacion for just that moment, because he can also play first base. He can fake it at first base if they wanted to. I think overall, unfortunately, even though it's been a nice revival of his career the last year and a half, where he's been hitting so well in the upper minors, I just don't think it's going to translate. I think he's just he's found his level. He's in his happy place right here, and I just don't see him as like a big time prospect that you can count on here.
Also, Wendell can play a little bit of left field, right? He has played, or he played for Tampa Bay for some time. I mean, I'm throwing out options. There is, you can put together a puzzle and see how it goes.
Yeah.
But if you think on someone from outside the organization, who would you think? Ramon Laureano, for example?
I liked him a lot at this time a year ago. I was convinced that they were going to get that deal done last year, entering the season, and they surprised everybody and said, no, we'll trust Sanchez and we'll see how that goes. That didn't go very well. I thought that had a real chance of happening. Let me just check on how he's performing. He just hasn't gone back to the player that he was before his TD issue. His defense is good in right field at this point. I'm not even sure whether you can trust him defensively to add a lot. You're just praying that offensively he goes back to what he used to be. But now it's a couple of years removed from being that player, where it's just a below average. Oh, Noah's adding himself back in there just in time. So there are only a couple teams that realistically you could trade for a decent piece right now. It's the Oakland A's, maybe the Royals as well. Those are the teams that seem that there's no path for them to be good right now. But everybody else, it's very bundled up. There are teams like the Nationals that people thought would be in that category, and they're decent. There are teams like the Rockies. The Rockies were supposed to be in that category, and they are still like they're not that bad.
Not that bad, yeah.
So these teams are not going to be in a hurry in the middle of May to give up any starting caliber players for prospects, only if something very creative that addresses both teams' needs at the major league level right now. Even the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds were a team that we thought would be in that situation this year, and they're very much like the Nationals, where it's a surprisingly deep team where they get just enough production from different areas to stay in the hunt right now.
Well, I remember in the offseason when I wrote a fan post, I mentioned the D-backs, because they at that moment they have the 4 center fielders. That will they trade Varsho away for Gurriel. But and one of the ones that I really liked was Jake McCarty. He had a terrible start of the season. He went back to AAA, but they called another one that I really like, Dominic Fletcher. So maybe giving McCarty a chance. He's not playing at the major league level anymore.
Right.
So maybe, I don't know, a change of scene can be beneficial for him. Just to have it in mind.
And the same thing came to my mind with him. They could buy a little bit low on McCarthy, who was people weren't overly excited about him a year ago before he debuted, and then last year he was amazing for that period of time that he was in the big leagues. Then started this year by being, as you said, even worse than they could have feared. And so the reality is somewhere in the middle, where he's somebody that you trust him defensively, and you trust him as a base runner, and you know that when things are going right, there's a period of time where he could be a starting caliber hitter for you. But yeah, he's somebody that there's some risk involved with him. There's a reason why the D-backs aren't trusting him at the major league level right now. And maybe there is some sort of middle ground where they're willing to part with him now if they feel like their outfield is mostly set without him. And we'll see. But we should get quickly. I always say this before the streams, is that maybe we won't go a full hour. Maybe we'll end it early. But we've done a good job of filling this out and getting into this national series, the starting lineups for the first game of it. And I'll have the probable starters for all three along the bottom, now that we have the confirmation that Yuri is indeed making his second start for that Thursday matinee.
Great news, yeah.
Yeah, that Noah will probably be in attendance for that, health permitting, on Thursday to see him.
Yeah, I should be there.
Yeah, for this first game, Josiah Gray versus Jesus.
Should hopefully be there tomorrow, but still up in the air.
Right. And with the Marlins, your leadoff hitter, Garrett Hampson. Is this the first time? Let me check how often he's batted.
People's leadoff hitter.
He's started a lot, obviously, at times this year. I don't know if he's batted leadoff prior to this. Making that very interesting choice. They don't have a whole lot of options at this point. Let me see if I could look that up. Yeah, this is Hampson's first time batting leadoff for the Marlins this season. What do you know about that? And otherwise, it's pretty much it's very similar to what they had on Sunday in their previous game with Cooper and Arise and Soler. As Noah mentioned, Soler, especially at home, he's probably going to be a full-time DH. It would make things quite a bit easier in light of these injuries if Soler could play the corner outfields on occasion. This limitation, unfortunately, they have to dance around that one way or another. Joey Wendell at the bottom of the lineup, still not hitting very much at all since coming, even before his injury or after. He had that one key hit against the Cubs in Wrigley.
He had the triple, and then he had a double in the Diamondbacks series, a game winner.
Yeah, against the D-backs.
Yeah, so he had two nice hits. He had the actual game winner against the D-backs, then the one against the Cubs, which it looks like it would put them ahead for a moment. It extended the game.
That game took so long.
Yeah. And then on the national side, these are a lot of familiar names, actually, mostly that were on the team last year. The new ones are Dominic Smith, who
the people's first baseman.
He's trying to resurrect his career with them as a platoon hitter. Oh, yeah, actually, he's playing almost every day. They just drop him in the lineup against lefties, as they do today. As we touched on, Stone Garrett, the former Marlins prospect. This is his first time playing against the Marlins since leaving the organization. And aside from that, Joey Meneses finally getting hot again after a slow start to the season. And otherwise, a lot of familiar names. Yeah. Is anything in particular, Hans, that you want to get into?
Robles is not there because he's still injured, but he's having a great season, actually.
Right.
So this Nationals team is going to get much better when he's back. We got to be careful with it. Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry we didn't have time about the catching situation. I'm all waiting for Nick Fortes taking over Stallings on playing time.
He's been getting the bulk of playing time. It just depends on who's pitching, which I think will end up changing as time goes on. But I think that's pretty much been set in stone as to which pitchers are pitching to which starters are pitching to which catchers.
Yeah, but the question that Eli had on Twitter a couple of days ago about the pattern that Stallings had throughout the season was whenever Sandy and Edward is pitching, so Stallings is starting. In every of those games, the Marlins have allowed 4 or plus in runs from the opponent team. And he's hitting what, like 100?
Yeah, unfortunately, Fortes is just not a whole lot better. It would be a bigger topic to me.
I think Nick Fortes is a victim of inconsistent playing time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He's not gonna hit 300, but 230, 240, 300, 310 OBP, and that is pretty decent for a catcher. The bar is very low right now, so
Sure is.
I'm just gonna give you guys three names that are available right now. Luis Torrens became a free agent yesterday, I think, and two options from other organizations that have MLB experience. Mavis Viloria, he was just scooped from the Angels, and Kevin Plawecki, he's playing on the AAA from the Nationals, actually.
Kevin Plawecki.
Yeah,
I
he's
forgot he's
hitting
still
like,
playing.
yeah, he's still playing. He's with the Syracuse, I think. And he's hitting like 270, 350 or something like that. Just check it out. Uh, Call NG, Akiman, make it happen. I mean, Starling situation is like unsustainable.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was looked really bad for much of last year. He straightened it out in the middle of the year, right after the All-Star break. But then this year, it's been even worse. I don't know what to say. Like, I remember early on, for the first couple of weeks of the season, he was crushing the ball and just not getting good results from it. Like he was making really good quality contact, and it seemed like that luck would eventually level out. And unfortunately, what happened is his skill level actually showed up. Like he just stopped hitting the ball as hard as he was earlier in the year, and he's been. And will you slice it? Maybe the worst offensive player in baseball, if you include the base running as well. At least Fortes, if he gets on base, he's somebody that could go first to third on a single, or he could score from seconds on a single, second to home. Like with Stallings, it's just there's just no redeeming quality when even his defense is down from where it was last year. If they had any decent internal alternatives right now, they would go. I think they would go to them right now. And instead, it's just a matter of, as you mentioned, like when can they find another veteran player out there to try out in that situation? Somebody that's been around in the majors for a while and who is also a defensive-minded player, but can at least give you something more with as a hitter as well. Oh boy. But from there, from there, well, that's enough on. We'll get into that. Like pretty soon, there's only so much longer they're going to go before they're kind of forced into a decision there. He's either going to have to play a little bit better, which I think is possible, or they're simply going
I mean, I don't think I can get any worse than what is right now. So
right.
Yeah.
But from there, let's get into prediction time.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
Our final segment here on the show. Do I have an updated leaderboard to show people? We do this before every single Marlins series. We just pick how many games the Marlins will win and who the series MVP will be. Could be from either team, regardless of who you have winning the series. And we decide the winner based on win probability added that those players put up during the course of the series. It's combined between our staff, our stream guests like Hans, and our super subscribers. Our super subscribers are kind of dominating this one. I know Gabriel said he just showed up on the stream. He's tied for third behind Williams and Gerard Encarnacion stand. Kevin is our top staffer right now, and Noah not that far behind. I'm just below the fold on here. I think I'm in like a tie for 13th place so far. I've been slumping quite a bit. And despite the injuries that this team has endured, and despite some worries about exactly how sustainable this is, there's a lot of confidence from the super subscribers right now. Do I have that right? Did every single one of them pick the Marlins to win the series so far? A lot of confidence from them at this point in light of who they're missing. I think they may be underestimating the Nationals. We'll see if our staff feels the same way. We do have our predictions from the ballpark from Daniel and Isaac Azut and special guest Andres Bolivar. I think I have to redo this to bring the audio in so that everybody can hear it. So if you could bear with me for just a few seconds, and that buys you a little extra time, Hans, to think about your own prediction here. As to what direction you're going to go. So if I reshare that here with the audio from that, this is Daniel, Isaac, and Andres. And all I have to do is set up the dramatic background music as well. It would not be prediction time without this prediction time music. There we go.
All right, thank you, Eli. We're here live to the series predictions between the Washington Nationals and the Miami Marlins. I'll go first. I think the Marlins take 2 out of 3, and MVP will be Luis Arias. I think he'll come up big in big spots with a whole bunch of injuries happening. He'll be the big player for the Fish. And next up, we have Mr. Isaac.
I believe the Nationals will take this one, unfortunately, 2 out of 3. And Joey Meneses, I think he's going to come through.
All right, and special guest Andres Bolivar. Andres, your prediction.
Marlins take this series 2-1, and the MVP is gonna be John Berti.
Oh, okay. All right, that's our predictions. Back to you.
Thank you, boys. Oh, and did we lose Noah right before prediction time? Unbelievable. He chickened out. He sent me. He has the Marlins winning 2 out of 3, and Brian De La Cruz winning MVP. We'll go to you here, Hans. You know how it works at this point. What do you think is going to happen in this series?
I think I'm not gonna be the party pooper, and I'm gonna say the Marlins are gonna take 2 out of 3. However, it's gonna be like a weird situation. I think the Nats are gonna take the first one from Jesus, but my man Edward Cabrera is gonna pitch the best game of the year tomorrow, and Edward is gonna show up again that he just belongs. My MVP would be Garrett Hampson. He's going to be the spark this lineup needs, and he's going to get on base often.
All right. And for my final prediction to close the show, Noah's going to jump in right in time at the very end here. I have the Marlins winning this series 2 out of 3 against the Nationals, continuing their excellence against the Nats that dates back to last year, with Brian De La Cruz winning MVP honors. When things are bad for DLC, they're really bad. But in this particular moment that we're in, he's going to get all the playing time that he wants, and I think he's going to get some key hits that ultimately make the difference in the Marlins taking the series. And if we could get Noah on just in time, if his internet allows, your prediction here to close out the show.
My prediction is the Marlins take 2 out of 3, and my boy De La Cruz is MVP. Apologies for being in and out. My internet is just not being very helpful. Yeah.
All right. So Fish Stripes Live, Eli Sussman, Noah Berger, In and Out, Hans Herrera, press box report from Daniel Rodriguez and Isaac Azud at the ballpark. Well, if your coverage, you'll find it on Twitter, more so on fishstripes.com throughout this entire series. We thank everybody for sticking with us here. And so we'll be back, I think, on Friday, at the start of that road trip coming up. Busy time of year, contending with also the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers deep in their own playoff run. So we're alternating our coverage and our schedule to make sure that we're respecting everybody that wants to follow along with those journeys, and maybe not quite as much the Marlins regular season baseball when it's still so early in the year. But we're having a lot of fun, and and this team, for the time being, they are staying afloat even with some of the limitations that they have at the moment. So thanks everybody for watching, and this is Fish Stripes Live presented by La Pop, and we'll see you guys in just a couple days for a new edition of the show. Go Fish.